Pornography is quite widespread nowadays.
But there's like more porn on Twitter than ever now.
Now, I was exposed to it at the age of 14 when Late Night Friday was still a thing on ETV. I used to sneak out into the lounge, switch on our black and white TV, make sure that the volume was down to 0, and then I would indulge in that adult content. Then I'll just go back to bed and sleep like nothing had happened. I did this for a number of years, week in, week out. It got to the point where it escalated and I masturbated to the content that I saw on screen. Now that started a spiraling effect because I was a late bloomer, so to speak. So that actually fascinated me. Fast forward to 2019, I'm now in tertiary first year. I get my first cell phone. Fortunately for me, I was limited in terms of the amount of data at my disposal, as well as my limited knowledge of the internet. So unlike the generation of now, I didn't take advantage of all the things that I could have been exposed to at that particular point in time due to having a cell phone in hand and the widespread nature of how the porn industry was booming at the time. Now, fast forward to me right now, looking at this lens and speaking to you. At the age of 34, I came out relatively unscathed in terms of the impacts of porn and porn promotion that happens.
Oof, why is pornography bad?
Unfortunately, many people aren't as lucky as I am. So I'm doing this video for the wider community, for generations that are coming, but also you, whether you consume porn or not, to look at it at a perspective where you see that there is some damage, but relatively some things that are defended and are sought to be good or seen to be good by others, but in actual reality does more harm than good. Porn has social, ethical, and legal consequences. In short, some social consequences of pornography include distorted views of sexuality and relationships, objectification of individuals, and body shaming. Ethically, the porn industry has been criticized for its exploitation of its performers, the unequal power dynamics, and the normalization of such harmful practices that actually promote violence against women. And legally, there are concerns regarding the distribution of illegal and underage content, as well as issues pertaining to privacy and consent. Additionally, access to porn can raise concerns around issues of freedom of speech and censorship. So even though it has been around for a very long time, it has been heightened in terms of accessibility due to the rise of the internet. So the question that we now have to ask is whether it is okay to promote porn in today's world.
Why is there so much porn on your timeline?
It's Twitter, bro. There's porn on Twitter.
With the rise of the internet, children are exposed to porn at a younger age than has ever seen before. This can have a negative impact on their development. Unfortunately, it skews how they see the world and it influences their attitude towards sexuality, relationships, women, body image, body shaming, how they see themselves in the mirror, and also how they see others. The biggest thing, however, is that it can lead to addiction, which is something that is very difficult to fight in adulthood. Just like with any other type of addiction, the consumption of porn can lead to porn addiction. Research has shown that it can further lead to escalation pornography. This can have negative impacts on one's life, affecting not only their relationships but also their mental health, leading to decreased productivity and more negative impacts that lead them down the rabbit hole and escalates into a domino effect. Furthermore, as your brain becomes more accustomed to the stimuli that comes with pornography, you become more attuned to seeking out more aggressive and violent acts within the pornographic scenes so as to reach the same level of excitement and stimulation that you got at the beginning. But remember, this is what addictions are all about, trying to get you to chase your first high. And pornography is no different when it comes to that particular stimulus that it brings forth. The truth is, that's when you find out that you'll never be able to achieve that very first high that you got in the first place, sinking you deeper and deeper into the rabbit hole with no way to come out unless you actually seek the help that you need to get in the process of becoming better. One of the biggest things with the pornographic industry is that it objectifies women. Women are often portrayed as mere sexual objects for men's pleasure. This therefore reinforces this harmful gender stereotype. Unfortunately, they are placed on every scene and reduced to nothing, only placed there for men's desires. Women are reduced to nothing more than their physical appearance, and their worth is simply put down to just the sexual desires that they can bring forth for men's pleasure and men's satisfaction. This objectification of women often reinforces toxic masculinity, perpetuates rape culture, and contributes to a culture that demoralizes, devalues, and dehumanizes women. Now, as a father of daughters, this particular point sticks out to me, because what if it was my daughter on screen that was seen by a young man at the age of 14 who would sneak out week in, week out just to be able to see what was on screen? That is something that would hurt me individually. So if we're to take things to that individual level, I believe that society would make better choices and women wouldn't be as objectified as they currently are. Another reason why promoting pornography is actually harmful is that it has a negative impact on people's relationships. Research has shown that exposure to porn over time will decrease the amount of intimacy that one has in their relationship. It will also reduce the amount of satisfaction that you have with your own body as well as with your own performance. Over and above that, it tends to impact the amount of trust that you have in your partner or for your partner, and limits the amount of communication and openness and transparency that you can have with your very own partner. Those are key pillars in holding any relationship strong. So it's a negative impact if you on your side are unable to actually deal with those negative impacts of promoting porn. The more we promote it, the more relationships get exposure to the porn, and therefore the more the negative impacts can actually happen. Additionally, we must remember that porn creates this facade. In other words, it gives us this unrealistic expectation of what intimacy and sexuality is all about. So if you have your own experience of relationships through porn, then it means you're gonna go in blindly, only informed by what you've seen on a screen and how it has enabled you to act, and worse so, how it has actually gotten into your system and made you act passively aggressively towards yourself and towards your partner in one way, shape or form. This is an addiction, as we spoke about it earlier on, which actually makes it difficult for you to form meaningful relationships with people that you actually engage with. That sense of touch, the sensation of smell, the nuance around certain actions that are meant to attract you, those are things that you don't easily pick up because your focus is on how intimacy is supposed to be. The aggression, the penetration, and other actions that are fitting in a porn scene rather than in your scene of life in reality. Pornography often involves, sadly, people who have been trafficked or coerced into performing sexual acts. The demand for pornography thus fuels the sex trafficking industry, and unfortunately this is a major contributor to human rights being violated, abused, and exploited. Thus, by promoting pornography, we are indirectly supporting this shameful industry. Living in a country like South Africa, where rape is high, where violence is high, it's sad to see that the consumption of pornography, when you look at the stats and the research that is out there, is also high. So that means that there could be a correlation. More research would need to be done. However, the research that does exist on a generalistic basis actually shows you that there is an influence that pornography has on the amount of aggression and violence that is put out there in the world.
Now, not all, of course, who consume pornography will go out and sexually assault someone. That's not what we're saying here. But the fact remains that for an alarming amount of sex offenders, porn was a triggering factor, leading them to be less sensitive to sexual aggression.
The sad thing about it is that people can be desensitized and not be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's depicted in a porno film. That is a very dangerous trend. Unfortunately, it will also make it difficult for us to address what's real from what's not, for us to address the nuances that actually lead to this violence going on in the society that we live in, and people being exposed to it and screen thinking that there's no harm. Furthermore, this sexual gratification that comes as a result of people thinking that they need to be violent first, that is exacerbated. And unfortunately, that's a sad reality. And that trend is something that will need to be nipped at the bud and curbed before serious consequences can actually come out. Then, of course, there's the danger of the internet. The internet in and of itself is a good thing. It has brought too many good things in the world. It has brought advancements technologically so, and also in the way in which we live and thrive with other people around us. But there is also the aspect of how dangerous this exposure to the many things in society can actually be. And porn is actually one of those things. This increased exposure means that people at a younger age are exposed to porn, as we've touched on earlier on. But in addition to that, it creates this false sense of anonymity, meaning you can do your own thing in your back room. However, the consequences will always come out because we are members of a community. When we live in a society where we thrive off of each other's weaknesses and strengths, and that's how we build. The saddest thing out of all of this is that the internet, being the power machine that it is, and also being accessible to as many people as possible, leads to very harmful, illicit content. And this is where we look into the realm of child porn.
And I mean, I've never seen child porn on Twitter till this week. And I thought that's one of the first things I wanted to eliminate on the platform.
But it's not all doom and gloom. There have to be solutions to the amount of problems that promoting of porn actually does in the world and society that we live in today. So what is it that we can do to solve this particular problem? Firstly, we need to put it out there. We need to put it out there through awareness campaigns, through education, through attending to this matter at an early age and addressing it with age-appropriate groups. Making people aware at a young age of the consequences and impact of being exposed to pornography and pornographic content, but also for adults, knowing where to go if they feel they are addicted to porn, knowing how to identify the symptoms of being addicted to porn, knowing the sources of information that will help them be better in society, knowing that violence is not the way, and the aggregation of violence through harmful behaviors will actually lead to them doing violence in real life. So they must be able to distinctly differentiate between what's real and also what's not real, what works and what doesn't work.
I just really want to ask for us to speak about these issues more, because I strongly feel that our history of silence never did us any good, because silence only perpetuates more silence, while talking normally gives birth to more talking, more sharing, more identification, more awareness, more change. Small change in our small, humble life, but real change, a true one, emotionally safer.
We need to raise awareness about the negative impacts that promoting pornography can actually have on the individual, on the family structure, and community at large. We do this by attending to it at the most basic level, meaning starting in schools and within community centers, doing outreach programs, getting the information out there. And also through open and honest dialogue. this thing can't continue to be a stigma or taboo. We need to make sure we put the information out there so that people, whenever they promote, whenever they share, whenever they talk about it, then they are privy to the consequences of whatever it is they are saying or whatever it is that they are sharing at that particular point in time. But this in and of itself also needs a multifaceted approach. This can be done through government regulation. The government needs to come in, monitor the type of content that is out there, monitor through stats, through information sharing, through outreach programs, but also through strong regulation of the internet forums. There must be a certain level of censorship against things that are harmful to society. There must be a certain level of censorship around things that are harmful to society. And pornography, in the bigger scale of things, is one of those things, unfortunately. Secondly, parental control. We have all these devices that our kids have access to and that they can use, that they can play around with. What we then need to do is ensure that the content at their disposal is filtered through our parental control, through our advice, and through us maintaining a family structure that knows the values in which we work and operate. A family structure that will not work to promote and strive to promote porn in the long run or in the short term. We also do this through sexual education. So education is the key and fundamental mechanism, targeting people at all age groups through various mediums, through various platforms. Education must be used as a source to inform people of the impact of actually promoting porn, but also the impact of not being responsible with your sexuality, with your intimacy, with your relationships, with your kids, with your family structure, and with the community at large. Of course, we also have to give the industry itself the benefit of the doubt, meaning the issue of self-regulation, industry self-regulation, knowing that they put certain caveats in place, certain mechanisms in place that would prevent my daughter at a fragile age from accessing that content, or my son at a fragile age from accessing that particular content. This will then help alleviate exposure from a young age, so that whenever they do get to a point where they're exposed to it, they are more mature, more adult enough, and are able to deal with whatever exposures actually come their way. And lastly, technological innovations that actually help block, help filter out, help put opt-infiltrations in place, just so as to curb the open promotion of it in open society. So in conclusion, I'd like to simply say this. The next time you press on that share button and it's pornographic content, think about the consequences of promoting what it is you're sharing. Think about where it can land up. Think about the impacts that we've discussed in this particular video, and think about how we can better the community in which we work, live, and thrive in, so that it benefits us all. It starts with you. I love you, I appreciate you, and I thank you for watching. Cheers.
Obviously, just having a conversation about porn, even if it's, the really awesome car conversation, isn't going to solve everything. This is not a small problem, therefore no, quick fix solutions exist. But I believe that by teaching a critical thinking, a critical mindset to this, we're off to a pretty good start. And now if you're kind of wondering, is this educational strategy, is it really working? I want to show you a message that we received on Instagram just a couple of weeks ago to Changing Attitudes. And Changing Attitudes is a youth organization where I'm CEO, and we basically educate on this issue. Now let me read this to you because it is pretty awesome. I would just like to thank you for being a contributing factor to me having completely quit porn. I've been porn-free for 2 months now, and I'm feeling much better than before. Also, I feel I'm no longer contributing to an offensive and obnoxious industry.